the only real way of learning how to do this is to just get the experience, which I know as a beginner might be frustrating, because it's like, how do I get the experience if I've not got the skills yet? But then it comes through practice. It's like anything else with music. You don't pick up a guitar and become a virtuoso overnight. It takes those hours in your bedroom playing around with the chord sequence, with different picking techniques. Is the same with writing music to a standard of professional level. You're not going to be able to open up Logic or whatever software you start writing with and immediately get something that sounds like a professional film score. You've got to study the greats. As Johnny was saying, you don't just study film music. Listen to influences from all over the place. Listen to influences from the classic film scores, but also find inspiration from other things that you find interesting in the pop music world, things you find interesting in modern classical music, things you find wherever your interests lie. That's the thing that you really need to pick up on, because that's your voice, that's your internal thing that's going to make you stand out. If you go, right, I want to sound like every other film composer, then why would anyone hire you? Because you sound like everyone else.
Hello, welcome to the first episode of Scenes+Sessions Stories by Music. I am the main host of this podcast, is Xavier Lo, and this is a dedicated episode, as well as the rest of the episode of this podcast series is dedicated for all aspects of film music, from all the way to the nitty-gritty bits of the business and getting work, to all the way to the creative and thinkings and creative aspects of film music, for all aspects on each individual levels. And I am joined on this podcast by my three other co-hosts on there, Mr. Jonathan Worsley, Chiron Farrimond, and Sam Griffiths. And they are fantastic composers on their own right. And I am your host, Xavier Lo, as well as the founder of Scenes+Sessions. And I would like everyone to introduce themselves and have a little bit of a backstory of how they got to their careers. I think the best one to start would be Chiron.
Yeah. So my name's Chiron Farrimond. I'm a composer, producer, and audio engineer. I'm mainly focused in electronic dance music, but I've got interests in electroacoustic and acousmatic music, as well as sound design, as well as game music as well. I'm also a library music or production music composer, and I've absolutely loved technology in microphones for years. So microphone techniques and microphone recording are my penchants, really. That's a short and sharp thing. And also I met everyone here at the same university, and so it was at Bangor University we all met, which was a really brilliant time for all of us.
That's excellent. Can you tell us what really got you into this point of your career at this point?
Really, it's sort of been a natural progression of different things. So Bangor was purely music in the sense of composition, but then I started sort of going into more technical avenues. So I took modules in recording techniques, things that taught me about digital audio workstation or DAWs. The primary one that we used at Bangor and most studios was Pro Tools, because everything was Mac based. But my main door of use is FL Studio, but I've also used Cubase myself. And then it's just progressed over the years with getting experience in microphone techniques and just knowing about different ways to record things. And Bangor was pretty much one of the first places where I was able to hone those skills with knowing different microphone types and where to use them, because I was able to record orchestras, vocalists, all kinds of instrumentalists. And then in recent years, I've sort of worked with the likes of yourself, Xavier, Sam, and Johnny to design mic plans for recording setups for recording sessions in 22 and 23 and 24 and 25. But so it's been really interesting to learn new techniques and being able to explore them in a live setting.
What really interests you into getting into like composition or any kind of like getting involved in music that is used in not just in film but any kind of medium, really? So
in terms of, well, so if there's the way that I split my music is there's a personal side and there's a professional side. So I've got various pseudonyms I use for professional music. Everything that's professional is under my full name, and then I've got various projects where my personal music is under. The professional side is mainly been production music focused in the most recent years, but I've been able to sort of blend what I do on my personal side more into my professional side, because especially if you go into TV music, it's a lot more open with the styles that can be done. So I've recently worked on a melodic dubstep album that was recently taken on board by a company, so that'll be coming out at some point this year, which is pretty cool. I got into it because I collaborated with Sam a few times on various projects. So he's the more seasoned composer in that realm. And then personal music wise is purely just a love of the music, in the sense that it's a nostalgia trip for me. That's why a lot of my music is all game influenced, and it's generally 2001, late 90s music is very much what influences my personal style in that area.
great. Speaking of Sam Griffiths, he's been probably been in the industry a little bit longer than us, all of us. And he's had a lot of his music used in a lot of like some of the big film trailer campaigns.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Griffiths. I'm 31. I'm a composer from the UK, and I write music for mainly movie trailers and television, usually through production music albums, as well as sound design. I'm a big fan of working on sound design. And I met these all at university, as Chiron just said, which I had a great time when I was there. Really got me into exploring different styles of music and exploring different ways to write music I'd never really experienced before I went there. And then I've just slowly worked my way through trying to get into the industry for a few years, and then work my way into making music for movie trailers, which has been quite a lot of fun.
Is that particularly what you wanted to go into the movie, like writing for trailers and that stuff?
I mean, I've always enjoyed that sort of the size of it, and a lot of music that I listened to growing up was all about the build and making it bigger. And like I started growing up. It's a bit of a strange thing, but I listened to a lot of Pink Floyd when I was growing up, and that has these long builds in most of their music, and it's all about sort of delaying your satisfaction until the very end. And even though trailer music sounds nothing alike in terms of the style, there's definitely that kind of making it bigger and building and like having these really long rises almost of music that sort of just swells. I kind of found my way into trailer music just through, I'd been writing a little bit of TV music, and I got requested to write like sort of trailer light styles, and really enjoyed writing it. And through that then got some contacts within the trailer industry. It just kind of, the door opened in that direction. If it had opened in a different direction, who knows where I'd be. So it's difficult to say specifically why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's more the route that life laid out in front of me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. And I'm going to introduce our final co-host is Jonathan Worsley. He's a fantastic composer, orchestrator, and probably educational wizard out of all four of us combined. Basically, he's very detailed oriented, and the biggest musical nerds, I would say, that we know of.
Hello, everyone. I am Jonathan Worsley, and I am primarily an online music tutor, but I also write music. I have played in bands and play in bands. I play the keyboards, guitar, those sorts of things. And my main focus when it comes to music education is on orchestration and theory and the art of craft.
Is it that particularly any kind of orchestration, or is it just like, do you mainly focus on the orchestration that's going to be used in film music, or references on the ideas of film music?
That's a good question. I focus on orchestration in general, particularly with acoustic instruments. So I purposely limited myself to mainly working with acoustic instruments as the years have gone by, which is a bit strange coming from a rock background and as a synth player in a band. I think if we can do it acoustically, then that will inform the synth stuff as well.
Do you prefer talking on the orchestration parts when it comes to more on the aspects of film music, or is this just you don't try and be like biased towards film music, you try and like reference on all sources?
That's again a good question. Yeah, I like orchestration of all sources, not biased towards film music, because I think that informs good film music principles, and that it's very easy with film music to fall into easy and bad habits. Yeah, by placing limitations, I think we can write better music and give better music to the world without being too pretentious.
I assume that you prefer that more people like adopt some parts of the orchestrational principles and rules into the film music scene that is happening right now.
Yes, without being too pretentious, too loaded. I think that the art that a culture perceives, I don't want to use the word consumes, we don't like that word, consuming art, directly impacts the society. And it's not just orchestration, but it's thinking about the music that we listen to, the films we watch, art that we look at, especially in modern day with technology, that being critical of it, being curious, being questioning, definitely is something that I think everybody should do, whether they're a trained musician or not. And that when I'm educating, I like to hopefully get my students to start questioning things too.
Are you still as passionate about film music or any music in any medium, such as games or TV shows?
Good question. Film music is the main one out of media. I do play a lot of video games, as we all know, but film music, has embedded in our culture for the past few decades. I think it has a great power to move us and to get us thinking.
Thank you for your insight, Johnny. The last thing is this to introduce me. Basically, it's just that I am the founder of this production of this project of Scenes and Sessions. I've always dedicated myself as a film composer, even though I've composed things in other mediums, really. But I grew up watching films, and I found it very insightful of how music really elevates the storytelling and really brings out, in addition to the emotion of every scene. I still remember the amazing works of like watching as a child, the amazing works of John Williams, and in not just in Jurassic Park, but also in Star Wars as well. That's how captivating are using orchestral scores into really bringing out the elevations of every mood and genre and transitioning from them. And I try to adopt that same principle into the same aspects. And the reason is just that I want to also just to really elevate that practice as well, because I think it's just kind of like that art of like really supporting the films, and not just in films, but also in any kind of like visual media, to really elevate that kind of storytelling. As working as a professional in London after I did my master's, was just learning the trade. And it's just like, and the thing is it's like, I know all the rest of my colleagues can agree, this is that the whole aspect of film music, they don't teach you this in school or higher education, really. The only way to learn this is actually you have to go out and do it yourself. Sam, did you find that is just like you felt like you're out of your depth?
I definitely felt out of my depth to start with. So I graduated uni in 2016. And I learned the basics of sort of how to write for full media at uni. And I started my knowledge of music production and using DAWs, DAWs at university. I would feel like the university gave me a good foundation for sure. And I'm very glad I did that. But it was definitely not a case of leaving university feeling, right, I can go and get paid projects now because I'm good enough. Definitely not. Like, one thing that happened to me is about a year after graduating, I got an internship at a studio, being an assistant for a composer there. And we were doing lots of repetitive tasks. So sometimes it was like drum tracking. Sometimes it would be a case of producing things within Logic and Pro Tools. And I feel like that really pushed my level of production up in those 6 months, way more than I had in the last 3 years. It was crazy how much that kind of baptism of fire really helped me. And I do feel like the only real way of learning how to do this is to just get the experience, which I know as a beginner might be frustrating, because it's like, how do I get the experience if I've not got the skills yet? But then it comes through practice. It's like anything else with music. You don't pick up a guitar and become a virtuoso overnight. It takes those hours in your bedroom playing around with the chord sequence, with different picking techniques. Is the same with writing music to a standard of professional level. You're not going to be able to open up Logic or whatever software you start writing with and immediately get something that sounds like a professional film score. You've got to study the greats. As Johnny was saying, don't just study film music. Listen to influences from all over the place. Listen to influences from the classic film scores, but also find inspiration from other things that you find interesting in the pop music world, things you find interesting in modern classical music, things you find interesting wherever your interests lie. That's the thing that you really need to pick up on, because that's your voice, that's your internal thing that's going to make you stand out. If you go, right, I want to sound like every other film composer, then why would anyone hire you? Because you sound like everyone else. So you need to sort of go, well, I'm a big fan of X, Y, Z, and therefore I'm going to bring some of that in. One thing that I heard recently, which is quite an interesting one, is there's just been this Wuthering Heights film come out with Charlie XCX on the soundtrack, which sounds really strange when you just put those two things together. You're like, but the opening track of the album is this quite avant-garde atonal string arrangement with then like quite a big distorted brassy bass thing going in the background. And if you'd never checked out any of that stuff and you were going Wuthering Heights, let's go very period drama, and it would be what's been done before. So it's quite good to sort of explore outside of the conventions within the genre and see what you can pick out. And that brings your original voice to whatever project you're working on.
Yeah, like there's a lot of things when you get out and you just basically trying to satisfy people, and obviously when you're working as a film composer, you have to like do what the director or producer
of course
says, really. Especially when they start, they just try and just obviously just copy what is done before, which is not a bad practice, but like it kind of like sort of neglects your like creative improvement and development. It's not just the development or as creatively, it's also just like understanding the whole business part. Obviously, over the years and decades since then, of the practices, the business practices, and like certain principles of doing film music has changed drastically. But like some of the principles still stay the same. It's just like basically you have to. There's a whole process on it, and when you're literally just starting out, and when you go out and like the university is just basically like sends you out to the universe, really, and you have no idea what to expect, really. Johnny, I want to hear what's your experience on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So after graduating from university, I suppose in the naivety of youth, I thought I knew everything when it came to music. I thought, I've just graduated university with a music degree. I should be able to do anything. So I set that standard against myself, which, by the way, guys, not a good standard to set to yourself, because you won't end up doing anything if you compare yourself to everyone else. I have this memory, very strong memory, and I was in a DAW, I was in Pro Tools, which is what I still use, and I was looking at all of my virtual instruments, and it was synth presets on Absinthe by Native Instruments. And I was thinking, if I had a job writing music for a client, I wouldn't know where to start. I've got all the tools at my disposal, but I don't know where I would begin, which presets I would use. How do I not throw the kitchen sink at this? And from that point on, I decided, as I said before, to really limit myself and learn from the ground up, orchestration, doing it the traditional way. That was particularly after seeing a live concert of music from the Harry Potter films. And they played 3 cues from each film. This was the Halle Orchestra at Bridgewater Hall, I believe, in Manchester. And I remember the first 3 films scored by John Williams, so 9 cues in total. Wonderful. You're hearing all the filigree, all the cherries on top, all the melodies that you recognize. And then you get into the later films and the music was very, what you see is what you get. You've got a melody, you've got a chord progression. And then at the very end, the encore was just John Williams music. And that's when I thought to myself, right, this guy, John Williams, he's making music that is standing the test of time. Let's learn the same way that he did it. And granted, that's a much longer path. It's discipline. So I'm 30 now, and I've been doing that method since I was about 21. And only now am I starting to see the results. So if you want fast results, don't do what I did. But if you want actual sort of confidence in your own musical voice, maybe take the slower path. But yeah, in terms of getting a job, as I say, it's only now that I'm starting to feel confident that I'd be able to do that. And the technology is a whole other side. You can learn how to write on pen and paper, learn how to write on the Sibelius, but then a client is expecting an audio file at the end, or audio files. And that's something that is neglected in traditional education as well. Like, how do you get your idea into the end result? Like at uni, we were shown Pro Tools and we were shown how to write music, but we weren't shown how to put 2 and 2 together to create a final commercial product, how to make money from the music.
The application of knowledge, basically, yeah.
That's right. And then I went back to do a master's degree, same university, and Chiron did a master's degree at Bangor, but before me. And I even did the film music part there. And not to go into it too much, but again, it wasn't so much education. But what they did have us doing was finding a director for each assignment that was at the university or anywhere else in the world. I used Reddit to find one, and collaborate with them and work on a film. And it was doing that made it possible for me to start writing film music, because you suddenly realize, oh, I can do this. I've got all the tools. I just need to find a workflow. As the years have gone on, I've realized that I am a slow worker, and I'm very unhappy if I have to work to a very tight deadline. So I'm very choosy in the jobs that I take, which isn't for everyone, but I find that I do the jobs that I enjoy doing and that I can look back, put in my portfolio, and think that I've contributed to the world somehow.
Yeah. I am, as a seasoned professional in this, in film, in writing for film, is just that it is a toll when you're working on a deadline. And I also find that is like for filmmakers as well. I would say even at professional standard, like, have very little understanding on how we write music for film. The thing is also a production itself, because we have to do pre-production, production, and post-production. We have to do all these things. We have to like think of the idea, then we have to write it, then develop it, and then eventually we have to like do all the audio editing and mixing and that stuff. And we have to do that on a much tighter deadline. There are deadlines whereas comes to the point where it's almost unrealistic. And that's the thing, is just when you're like not just naive as an aspiring composer, but also as naive as a aspiring filmmaker in that sense. So that's why I think it's just like there's both sides that needs to be learned. So yeah, it's an industry that is quite fast paced, but also it's just like if you enjoy it, then that's the thing. But anyways, just like Chiron, I want to ask the same question to you. The expectation didn't like meet your expectations of like leaving education and like getting a job. Wasn't like what it was promised when we were all told at university or any educational institute.
There were definitely parts of what you needed there. You know, there were sort of things that were set up for like networking and sort of getting the early signs of it, but nothing concrete was ever really taught. But I think there are some things that you can learn at university and other things you just have to learn through experience. So university can help give that bedrock of knowledge that you might not be able to get elsewhere. Because I think Johnny made a few excellent points that I definitely agree with. There's a sort of a duality between what you need to learn and what you experience. And so, for example, when he was talking about comparing yourself to other people, that's something that I did for years. It's sort of like you're sort of wondering why are they a lot further ahead than I am? They're only maybe 2 years older than me, or why am I thinking that they're amazing and I'm not? You know, and it can really play and do a number on your mental health. So I kind of had to switch my sort of thought process and think, no, I can go at my own pace. Everyone's unique. Everyone's got a personality onto themselves. Everyone's got their own skills, and my skills might not necessarily have lied in composition at that point, but I knew that my skills were very strong in technology and understanding electronics and signal flow and post-production and things like that. So that's where I focused on. So one of the traps you can fall into is being a jack of all trades, trying to master every single portion of it, in the sense that you will not be learning as quick in any area, and in doing so everything's sort of subpar. So it's better to pick one or two areas where you can really focus on and really hone your craft, and that way you've got somewhere to sort of spread out from in the future. So that's sort of one of the things that I tried preempting even as far back at Bangor, thinking sort of, where do I want to see myself in the future? Because this is one of the issues with education, is that we're expected to think what we want to do 20 years in the future, you know, as far back as before GCSE, you know, what job do you want to end up in? And trying to put that kind of decision on a young kid's shoulders is pretty difficult. So, but luckily by Bangor, I kind of knew roughly what I wanted to do, because my interest was starting to develop then. And so what helped me bridge the gap between composition and technique of recording is actually acousmatic music, funny enough, because you're forced to think about technology and strip the idea of what sound is, because acousmatic music is purely about the way you perceive it. It's obviously one of those really experimental ones, and so it's a debate on itself if it's even considered music, but I do consider it music. But it helped me really understand the kind of context between being able to record things and get something workable out of it, because obviously I needed to use microphones to location record, so I needed to take a recorder out and about to record the sound of a river or some rocks bashing together or something like that. And so it sort of made me understand, you know, I mean, I already knew things about like phantom power and gain stage and all that, but it's these kind of things that reinforce the learning experiences. So yeah, so to fully answer the question, it's definitely a case of like, I came out of university after doing the 2 degrees thinking, where do I want to go next? So it's not so much a case of like feeling unprepared, but it was more a case of like bewilderment and wondering, where do I go next? Because it's like, I've already kind of seen where I want to go, but I'm not sure where. So I ended up just sort of working in retail for a few years and to sort of build up my funds and things while still working on music as a hobby. And then and then you can like with a lot of people is that when you build up the experience and build up the networking and clientele, you kind of start transitioning more into the area that you really really love. And so it's compositionally, it's been production music is being an avenue I've really loved doing, because it's to a certain degree you can write to your own brief and then try and sort of ship it around to see if anyone will be interested. But there is constraints within that, even within that field, because obviously it has to be commercially focused. But yeah, it's something where it was more bewilderment more than naivety.
For me, it was kind of pretty much what you said. It's just like when you're learning about on the bare, like probably like bedrock, but I would say even less than that, to be honest. It's just like you're being given like a general direction, and then that is it. They give you no other tools, basically. It's sort of the same kind of metaphor as just basically, here's the keys to a car, now go and drive around a track like Michael Schumacher. Basically like that. And if anyone doesn't know who Michael Schumacher is, he is a Formula One multi-world champion. Really. So that just proves how old I am, really. But basically that's what I felt, really. It's just like, okay, go in that direction. Nothing else. There's just basically that was it. And a lot of the stuff was just, I had to learn by lots of trial and error, and just basically just constantly just making the same mistakes over and over again until I finally got like some grasp of what to do. And then just obviously there's like, because of like aspects of technology and like certain practices don't exist anymore. When you leave education, that's where it stops. Learning stops. That's completely not true, because it's just like the whole process is a constant learning curve, and you have to like learn it because the whole world is changing. And it's like nowadays technology has made things a lot more accessible than even when we were like at university, really. So it's just like we have to constantly change and adapt to certain climates. But the thing is the attitude of like going into the world and learning, not just in film music, but just in any kind of like profession. When you go, you don't know the business sides, you don't know how it works, how to actually do this stuff. Yeah, there's little bits of networking, but it's just like, that's it. There's one network. You don't know how to apply those skills. So that's why it's just like, ever since I moved up to Aberdeen, Scotland, I felt like, okay, no one's going to change this, so I have to do it myself, really. And it's just like, and ever since 2022, it's just, I started the project of just basically having a major introduction of just basically not just the sides of like the theory of how to do it in film, of writing for film, and all the principles and that stuff, but also the business side of it, just like how to get like the approaches of getting clients and those things, and the process of production of going from basically just sketching out an idea all the way to doing like a recording session. They don't teach you that. They're probably like in conservatoires nowadays, but it's just like, they're like, they only get like, if you pay like ridiculous amount of money. The project that everyone was involved in on this podcast right now, it basically did it, and we got it from grants and non-profit like funding. And it was just like the students and the volunteers that were involved was just basically, it's just like they didn't have to pay a cent, because it's just like, it shouldn't be exclusive to someone who's just like basically, oh, it can only apply to someone who has this certain status or this certain amount of money. It's just like, I didn't come from that status. I had to work. I had to grind my life into London to try and get any ounce of film and work in film music. So that's the whole point of it. And then after nowadays, it's just like, that's the point of creating this podcast, is just to not just get it in localized, but also is just get it to wider aspects. And that is why all these three gentlemen are here, is just basically is just to spread that message. And the first iteration of it was back in 2023, and I asked Sam Griffiths and Chiron to be involved in that first iteration, and I wrote a whole proposal about it, and
Massive. I remember seeing it.
yeah, it was 20.
It was long. It was a really long proposal.
It was like, I can't remember exactly how many pages, but it was like
it was at least 30 plus pages. Because you had to have various models.
I have written more in that proposal than I have written in the entirety of any dissertation and essays in my university career. It's just like, that is just how much of that. This is how stubborn I am, really. It's just like,
well, the one word I think I'd call it was comprehensive. It covered many different aspects, you know.
Well, I need to know, it's just like, if there was any like certain plot holes or anything, like potential like issues, because it's just like, if one thing is just, I need to know how to counter it. So it's just like, I need to know what things, and obviously the first iteration didn't go as smoothly as I wanted to. It's just like, there were technical issues and like people weren't delivering things on time and that stuff. But
like with any new project,
like,
there's teething issues, isn't there?
Yeah, there was technical issues, but also was like, there was payment issues as well. It's just like, we had a very small budget. Most of it went to musicians. Like Sam got like, he got paid, but he got like almost nothing, really. Like, Chiron, you like,
I did it for free. I spent money to come up there.
yeah, you spent money to come up here.
But in a way, I did it for the dual purposes. Obviously, I hadn't met up with you, at least you two, in years, and so it was just nice to see my friends from Bangor again, and also that it was a nice practical sense of being able to help out, because at that point we hadn't included workshops and sort of practical educational aspects to it. It was obviously, Xavier, you had done a few workshops on how to prepare for it, but there was no kind of workshops put on by Sam, myself, or Johnny at that point.
The first iteration, it was only 4 workshops, and I had to do all of them, and that was a task and a half. I'll tell you that. It's just like, it was mentally and physically draining all the way through. It's just like, yeah, and I didn't have much preparation for some of the sessions, because it's just like, I didn't know because obviously it was the first iteration and I didn't know what the hell to do. So obviously I had to do things on the fly, but now it's just, but obviously it went, there was some success, and the first iteration, students found it very productive. But then there's just like, second iteration is just like, that was the biggest project of all. It's just like getting everyone involved. That was the time that that I had to introduce Johnny to help with workload at that point, because it's just like, the first iteration is, I had to do almost everything at that point.
Sam, how did you find your first experience joining the project, back in 23 with it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really good to sort of, I think, see the concept be born, really. Like, this idea of, as a student of music, especially people who want to write music for a living, getting a practical application of that, and from starting idea to recording session, I feel like it's quite a basic concept that no one had really come up with that. It seems so obvious that it should be a thing, but until Xavier really birthed this project, it didn't really exist. So it's really good to see that opportunity that the students got, and then to see how it's grown over time. Obviously, the first project was a lot more basics than, as it's grown up over the last couple of years, it became more involved, and we learnt lessons from the first year and learnt lessons from each time. But I really enjoyed it. It's a good opportunity for everyone who's been involved in it to sort of see how the world works in music outside of that. And it was a pleasure to be involved in it.
Same for you, Johnny.
That very first year, which was 2023, I believe, I was brought on to edit the documents. So to edit all the English language for the proposal. And I decided that it was really too hard to get up to Aberdeen, being in Wales. And I think that everything that we're talking about when it comes to money is saying something about the industry, that the fact that you had to spend money, Chiron, to work on this project to help students, say something maybe about how academic institutions might perceive film music, that I know some institutions might not even consider it to be a thing, to be a topic that you could study. Why study film music when you could just study film design? But all of us here agree that film music is its thing in its own right. And then it was the year after where Xavier very kindly asked me if I would have more of an input. And that's when I taught some workshops and came up. And Sam, your point about, it seems, about having live musicians perform your pieces as a composer, whether it's film music or whether it's just composition in general, that seems like the standard of what should happen at universities. I know at some universities, the more prestigious ones, you get your music performed. But I think at any university who's offering a music course, especially the composition course, that should be standard, that you should have your performers actually respond to your music and you get the feedback. Otherwise, you're doing things that you could do at home without doing a degree.
I think you've got a very good point there. It really, there's so much learning you do from that one recording session, or like listening to your music be performed by professional musicians and them giving you feedback on, why did you write like this? Have you tried this? That sort of thing. All of these feedback sessions give you so much more than you could do sitting in front of Sibelius software at home, which if you're just at university, yes, you've got a lecturer who tells you do this, but until you hear it live and see the problems arrive in real time and like work out how to fix them, there's so much stuff that creates and so much learning opportunities there that it's worth its weight in gold almost.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, because I think probably the same for all of us, but I don't remember any times where I had a piece performed and I got live feedback. You know, there was like a workshop session where the musicians performed the piece and then sort of said better ways of articulating things and slurring things and where things should be notated. Whereas what we've had with this project, we kind of managed to do that, because Johnny, you've helped a lot with that, with the orchestration side of things, with giving feedback to composers that have participated in the project. And then same with when we've actually had the recording sessions. I remember distinct times where, you know, musicians, brilliant session musicians, really able to play things on the fly with very little practice, but would still give the students opportunities to say, you know, do you want me to play it this way? You know, do you want it more articulated like this, because it gives it that kind of tone? And I don't, you know, and I think those kind of experiences, and I agree with Johnny, there should be a standard core component of music degrees, especially, with the composition component.
It's the same thing as just like what everyone else is saying. It's just like, obviously obviously money is getting involved in and that stuff when it comes to having musicians to play your pieces, and there's obviously that's the major factor of it, but the problem with that is that it's very selective, and that's just, to me, that's just not fair. It's just like, if anyone who wants to work with a musician or want to learn like how musicians play your compositions, it should be anyone who wants it.
That's actually a good point, because Johnny is the only one out of the four of us that has had one of his pieces played by BBC Now, the National Orchestra of Wales. And I believe that they had a session where they gave you a lot of feedback about your piece, and I presume that was quite invaluable, and that kind of setup was quite brilliant.
Yeah, I can't help but praise the BBC Now and the Composition Wales project that they do each year. It's a phenomenal service that they're doing for music. You end up doing 2 workshops with them, one 2 months in advance, and then one the day before the live concert. And I remember the learning for me there is you get taught this is the way it's just done. And then suddenly you've got a convention. You're not wondering, oh, for this project, do I do this? And for this project, you do this. They say, well, this is just how you do it. And then you've just learned that instinctively and you give it to the musicians and they can play it. Absolutely invaluable to have musicians there that you can communicate with, a conductor, composers in residence, composers there to guide you, other musicians, other composers, I should say, who have written, and you can speak with them. As Xavier said about 20 minutes ago now, that music is a lifelong learning pursuit as well, whether it's film music or just music in general. The moment you pick up an instrument, hopefully you'll be trying to progress until the day you can't.
Yeah, and the thing is just like, obviously it's a learning curve, but the thing is just like there's lots of like sort of like roadblocks because of like certain restrictions, because of like obviously there's money and like logistics and that stuff. But the thing is like when you're learning in university, you're always writing in well nowadays it's in like either a notation software like MuseScore or Sibelius or any DAW like Logic or Reaper or whatever, really, and learning how to compose in that. But for film music, it's a little bit more acceptable because it's just like you're not technically writing for like real musicians at that point. You're just doing for film. But the thing is just like you're losing the idea of the principle of practice of knowing how instruments work and how certain instruments blend well together. Because it's like you're learning this because, oh yeah, this sounds good in MuseScore. But then eventually when you come to the point where you're like have like a studio backing, you get to record, you have the budget to record with live musicians. And then you get to the recording session, it's just like, oh, that doesn't sound right. Well, because you've have the idea that you've been writing in a DAW or anything, and it's all perfectly balanced and everything is in a vacuum and you can hear everything. In the real world, physics exists. And certain things doesn't work well. Like a violin cannot match the volume of a trumpet. So it's just like, those are the certain like lessons that you have to learn, really. So it's just, and that's the problem. And the thing is, you don't get to learn that until you actually have to do it. And then obviously because there's prestigious like factors into it. So that's the whole point of this entire project. And that's why I had the gracious of Johnny taking the project on during the second registrations and further on to really help the students really understand that there are certain conventions and certain principles that you have to follow when you're thinking of writing for musicians that are for real. Because when you have that opportunity, you don't want to waste time just basically rewriting everything, really, because that's just waste of money and those waste of time. Don't you agree, Johnny?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Making use of your time in a session is so important. A session always goes much quicker than you think. Again, whether it's recording film music or you're in a studio recording a band, it will fly by. You get 2 or 3 takes max of each part. So you want to have a plan in advance of, I want to try the whole passage slurred. I want to try it unslurred, but that's your lot. That's what you're going to get. You can't start rewriting things on the day.
Speaking of, I know that Sam had a similar experience. He's done 2 different experiences that I'm aware of. There's ones where he's recorded with remote orchestras for pieces that he's written, and he's worked with quite a prestigious cellist called Tina Guo. I don't know if it's a more recent one, but how do those go for you, Sam?
They were great. It was a kind of similar situation to like any other recording session, but in terms of basically I had no hands-on experiences what I was going to get on the day. It was pretty much I write the piece in the DAW, I score it out into notation, I send it off, and I get back the files. I don't get any sort of say on the day of like, can you play it this way? Can I play it that way? That's up to the conductor when it was with the orchestra. Working with Tina, I sent her an email with, can you play it as written? But then can you also do your own interpretation version of it, basically do your own thing on it. And I would say in the recording that ended up getting used and released, I would say 80% of it, because she gave me 3 takes and I comped them together, and I would say 80% of it was her interpreting what I'd written more than the specific thing. But in terms of that, the parts had to be ready in advance, and that I couldn't go, "Oh, this is unplayable. They've got like 20 minutes to record it. What do you want me to do?" Like there's nothing you can do at that point. So it needs to be playable and ready, and having that experience. That's why Scenes and Sessions has been such a useful project for students coming through, because they will go into the world and have these opportunities in the future, but they've already got experience of working with live musicians and knowing what that's like in reality, and knowing, right, you've got to get stuff ready for those sessions in advance, really. And having that feedback from Johnny and from the workshops that we all did and will be doing in the future.
After doing that project, we're just kind of decided now is just like we want to make it like sort of international, where we can just like anyone who wants to learn this kind of stuff and understand the whole behind the scenes process of basic how film music is done, whether it's in production or the business part, and pretty much any aspects on the working side of it. In this podcast, we're just going to give like little sound bites of our knowledge and experience. If it's going to take on the coaching program, we've got many packages, and we'll dedicate it just solely for you. We'll just give you a free consultation as well, just to make sure we know we can tailor the package directly to you. It's one of those things that we just want to make sure it's just like this particular knowledge is presented to everyone who wants to take us on. So
help the next generation of composers. Basically, we want to take the knowledge we've gained over experience and give back to the community and help. I know that all of us have done sort of teaching in the past and still do to a point. And that is a great feeling to see someone come through and progress, and that's what we get out of it. So, as well as like giving that experience that we wish we'd have had back when I was 20, I wish I'd have had this opportunity. So,
yeah, basically we just like present our knowledge that we wish we had when we started. It's just like it can be just complete consultation of like knowing how to get your first feature film, or whether it's just like whether you want to know about whether like a specific track note works within a particular scene or portrays a particular movement, or if you want to go really in detail, and we can go on to the parts of orchestration and audio techniques as well. There's all multiple aspects that we can go into that. Whatever your goal is a particular journey we want to try and fulfill for you. We'll have 3 packages. One is the most basic one where we can just like spend like about a month's worth of sessions with you, whether we just give you little tasks to give you preparations, or we just basically have one-to-one sessions with the particular coach that basically helps you with, could either be myself, Johnny, Chiron, and Sam. It can also, for the regular one, that's about 3 months, and then the premium is probably be about 6 months worth of sessions and particular tasks that we give you to help improve on the particular skills or the task that you want to help you on, whether it's in business or whether it's in the creative aspect. So the whole point of the coaching program. But if you just like, if you're not sure you want to commit for something that long, and you're just like, that sounds like complicated or anything, well, we also do just session by session rate, but we recommend the packages because they're a lot more affordable in the long run. The whole point of the whole coaching program is to basically just to help you understand. If you're an upcoming composer and you want to learn all the process behind it, then we can give you that. If you're a filmmaker or anyone that needs use of music in medium or like in video games, TV, trailers, whatever. We can basically help you understand of how a composer does this and how it can be used fundamentally in your project.
I suppose anybody who's watching this podcast, you can probably tell the project is in its infancy. Things are being ironed out, but we're four composers who are coaching other composers with film music.
The reason why you would want to take the coaching program would be if you're looking to become a composer or looking to improve your composition, and you want the knowledge and that we all have found from our experiences, and we might be able to help you, point you in the right direction and give you some guidance.
Well said, Sam. That was very succinct.
Very succinct. Yes,
Chinese meal. Yeah, and we do like to have a laugh as well.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we're not just robots.
Yeah, we're just four guys. We're experienced. What's that? 120 years-ish experience between us all together.
Oh God! Don't say it like that.
I still want to feel young.
Yep. We've all got different skill
kind
sets.
of gone where you basically just wake up with backache, really. So just
And I'd just like to show in to anyone who is actually still listening to this. Don't neglect your harmony and counterpoint. It will help you as you write music. It makes decisions for you. That's the one thing that I'm glad I went to university for. And I'm always excited to share with people who don't have the luxury of going to university. We had a phenomenal tutor at university. I'll even name him, Dr. John Conningham. It's always in the power of a teacher that makes the education best. He did a great job, and it's always a pleasure to pass on his teaching to me to further students and see it actually being used to make great music.
I think it's good to know modes and music theory. But I always think, especially if you want to focus on film music or any music that tells some kind of story, whether it's film music or concert music or game music, or knowing things like your modes or different elements of theory can really help you sort of dial in a mood without even writing a note. You sort of are creating a map for yourself to send you down the right direction. And I know a lot of people sometimes feel a bit like, I don't want to learn music theory because it will ruin my creativity, which is wrong, because it doesn't tell you how to write. It just explains what you are writing. That's all it does.
Descriptive rather than prescriptive.
Yes.
Music theory. That it's just giving names to things that people have done in the past. And the phrase I use, they're tools in our toolbox. And it means you want a certain sound, you know exactly what to do rather than having to noodle on the piano. The phrase I always use when I come to modes in my lessons is they're the most contentious topic in all of music theory, because thanks to popular music, thanks to rock music especially, modes blew out of proportion. And that's why there's so many modal videos on YouTube. And the way that guitarists learn scales, we learn modes to play the major scale. And then guitarists have this biased opinion.
But anyway, just to bring it back where we were saying, it's just that if we got a whole lot of topics here, but like if there's any particular topic that anyone's listening, you want to cover, or anything that is not really covered often, then you can just like contact us on the socials at Chiron. You should tell us all the socials that you can find us on.
So most of our socials will be Scenes+Sessions Hub. There will be, wherever this video is posted, be YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, you will find links in our bio or in the video description to where you can find ways to contact us, as well as our websites as well. So you can stay in regular contact.
Yeah. Definitely. It was just like, we got a bunch of topics to go on to basically more the business side of the things, getting into film music. But we are floating the idea of just like really going deep dives on particular film composers. Like we can go on to sessions, like a dedicated episode, or talking about basically the career and all the music of Bernard Herrmann, and we can talk about like James Horner. And I think Johnny would love this topic. We could talk about maybe 2 episodes dedicated to John Williams, really. So
do a whole podcast.
Just about John Williams. Probably could.
Yeah.
Just about John Williams.
Easily. Lots of exciting stuff to come.
I thank you for all listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.